presents a new upcoming class. Stay tuned. Sacred Bonds by Daryl Abdullah Kirk. Yes, Sacred Bonds, navigating the depths of Muslim matrimony and the family. You don't want to miss this one. Please stay tuned. Streaming on all major platforms right here on Sunnahfollowers.net.
Welcome to our series called The Sacred Bonds of Marriage. The Sacred Bonds of Marriage. And again, before embarking upon any major lifestyle change as a Muslim, we should first investigate to see what Allah and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to say about adapting that lifestyle. And the same holds true when it comes to marriage. Any type of marriage, whether it's polygamy or not, you need to investigate to learn what your roles and your rights are and all of that in accordance to Islam. But even more so when it comes to polygamy, because polygamy is not for everyone. Okay, polygamy is for the strong. The polygamy is for the mature, the elder and older people. Young people are going to have a very, very, very hard time with it. And that's why Aisha, radiallahu anha, had such a hard time. Because she was young. She was a young woman. She was not a mature woman like the other women. The other women had been married before, and they had been married to men who had had previous wives along with them. They also had children and all of that. So they were more experienced when it came to that. Okay, but not the case with Aisha, because she was the only wife that he married who had not been married before. And back, as we talked about, polygamy was something that existed even before the advent of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The entire world practiced it. Okay, but when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the call to prophethood, Allah sent down laws, guidelines, and regulations to make it easier for the women involved, to be honest, for the women involved, because women didn't have rights before then, and women were abused in regards to polygamy before. So, you know, it's not a way of life that I suggest for everyone, especially not for you new converts. And I'm really speaking to the new converts here, because there's a lot of Muslim men that will prey upon you. Because you're a new convert, when you walk into the door, they'll just engulf you and try to pull you into their web, because they'll play on your ignorance of the religion. They'll play on a lot of things. So you have to be careful. I don't suggest any new shahada and go into that lifestyle until you learn about it. Okay, and if you're young, I don't suggest any young woman go into it. I'm talking women in their 20s, women in their 30s. I don't encourage it for you. Even women in their 40s, they have to be mature women who are independent, in my view, and self-sufficient, because I'm telling you, the world is not the way it used to be. Islam has become strange, as the Prophet said it would, and we have reverted back to the way it used to be before Islam. And there are so many women whose rights are abused regarding polygamy. So I don't recommend it for you unless you're an independent, self-sufficient woman, who ain't looking for nothing but a person to be a companion for you. This is my view. And I very seldom put my opinion in stuff. But unless you were just looking for companionship, I don't suggest it to any of you sisters who are young. Tonight we're going to cover chapter 27 and the beginning of chapter 28, which addresses embracing polygamy. And I'm going to go as far as to page 186. I'm going to go up to page 186 of the book. A lot of good information here, but there's a couple of things I changed, okay, because they were misleading. And I'll get to that. All right. So yesterday we spoke about how Islam is all about justice. Allah hates oppression. He hates people that go around oppressing or usurping or taking advantage of others. We have to remember also that Islam is a way of life. It's a universal way of life that embraces diversity, and it recognizes the importance of customs and traditions too. And we don't have a problem with culture unless it impacts or our way of life. We don't participate in holiday celebrations. We don't participate in that stuff or country celebrations because that stuff contradicts our Islamic morality. Okay. And the same applies when it comes to our family lives. For example, a lot of people say, for example, you come from an Oriental background. And in your culture, the women bow to a man. You guys see it on TV? In many Oriental cultures, it's their custom for a woman to bow to her husband, bow to her father, bow to any man that's of authority over her. Well, this contradicts Islam because bowing is an action of worship, and we only bow to Allah. So that's an example. If it's a culture or a custom that contradicts our way of life, we do away with it. You can't have your wife bowing before you. And also in some cultures, for example, women walk 10 feet behind their husband. That's not Islam either, because in Islam, the man is supposed to be the protector of his wife. His wife should be on his arm so he can protect her. When the Prophet ﷺ would walk his wives home from the mosque, he was right beside them. He did not have them walking behind him. And like I told you guys yesterday, this is why it's important to seek the proper, correct knowledge of our religion. Because there's so many misconceptions out there about Islam. People tell you things that are not founded. They're not true. And also that verse that we ended with yesterday, Allah tells us in the Quran that when it comes to our everyday living, you can't have a better example other than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad had many wives. He had many wives. He had children. He should be our role model as to how to live and practice marriage, how to live and practice polygamy. So again, any type of cultural customs that contradict Islam, we do away with it, such as bowing before someone, okay? Walking 10 feet behind someone, that contradicts our way of life. And so what Brother Daryl Abdullah Kirk does is now he goes over some tools for successful polygamy, but a couple of his tools I didn't use because they were too ambiguous. I didn't understand what he meant by it, and they could be taken out of context, so I didn't use them. But for the tools that he did use, for example, this. First of all, I want everybody to know that, once again, we are Muslims. We are not Mormons. We are Muslim. We are not LDS people. We are Muslims. Our way of life, even when it comes to marriage, has been outlined and defined for us by Allah. And the best example in how to do marriage is our Prophet Muhammad. So if anything is not within the guidelines of the Quran, anything that's not within the guidelines of how the Prophet lived and practiced polygamy with his wives, I don't accept it, and none of you women should. So the first lesson to learn is we are not all one happy family. When your husband takes on another wife, it's not your business. That has nothing to do with you. Her life is her life. Your life is your life. The two don't have nothing to do with each other. Her children are her children. Your children are your children. You can't tell her what to do with her kids. She can't tell you what to do with yours. On the day of judgment, you will not stand together as one family held accountable for the children that's not yours. That's not Islam. So each family is separate and independent of the other. This is one of the things that I emphasize, because in the book, he had me like, I don't know what he's saying. He need to come out. It kind of sounded like we all one family. No, we're not. Each family's needs and dynamics are different. Okay? And there are certain tools and strategies that a man can use to help him to leverage each family. But he has to understand that they're not all the same. They're different and they're separate. My family with him is not her family. Okay? He may use different techniques with me than he would use with someone else, because no two women are alike. And we have different genes, okay, that run through the children. They're not the same either. But I like how the brother put here, number one, one of the best tools to use is be open and honest in your communication. We have to, but I rewrote this. You have to establish clear lines of communication, not between all parties involved, but between each family unit. That's what I changed it to. Okay? You have to have open discussions about expectations and boundaries, not together. This part here sounds too much like LDS, Lifeline. No, we are not Mormons. Nowhere does Islam say that all the wives sit down together once a month and hold meetings to discuss our boundaries. We don't do that. And again, the best example is the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His wives did not hold meetings and sit down with each other talking about their expectations. They did not talk about what their boundaries are and all of that. So I didn't agree with this, and that's why I put it here. If you're going to do it, you do it separate and independent of others. Before you marry the woman, you let her know, I got other wives. What goes on between them ain't none of your business, but I'll take care of you the way Allah's commanded me to. That's it. But family meetings like the Mormons and LDS and TLC TV, that's garbage. That's not Islam. And remember, in Islam, we don't imitate a people. The Prophet said, anyone who takes on the behavior of a people other than us, you are one of them, not us. So the communication is not between the women. And that's why I tell the women, polygamy ain't your problem. That's your husband's problem. He's the one that's got to communicate independent of you to them other women. That ain't your business. There ain't no head wife. There ain't no sister wife. Because you the first wife don't mean that you got no rights over me or power over me. You ain't got nothing over me. You just another woman. And don't get it twisted. Does everybody understand that? Feedback from the Zoom room. Am I clear on this, Zoomers?
Definitely clear.
Yeah, because I didn't like that part there. I had to redo that.
Yes, that's very clear.
Yes, because ain't no communication between all parties. The only person that you are as a woman communicate with is your husband and his expectations, not them other women. The boundaries have already been set by a law, not by man. Man can't make up his own. All right. Secondly, Islam emphasizes equal treatment and justice. Islam emphasizes the importance of treating your wives with equality and justice. But most men don't understand what that entails. Okay, when Allah speaks about justice, he's talking about the time that you spend with each wife. A lot of people think that that means money. No, that's not true. So this is the second correction that I'm making in this book. Okay, second correction. Second correction. When Allah speaks about being just, he's talking about your time spent. Because my financial needs are not the same as hers. If the man followed the laws of Allah, you know, my financial needs are not the same as hers. She may need you to pay her rent. She may need you to pay her light bill, her gas bill, and buy her food because she has no income. You are her income. I don't need you to pay my rent. I don't need you to buy my food. I don't need you to buy my clothes. All I need you to do is give me $1,000 a month that I can do what I want with. Y'all get it? So this is the second correction that I'm making at this part of the book. When Allah speaks about being just, he's talking about the time, because the financial needs of each wife can vary. Just because you bought her a house don't mean that he has to buy me one. Maybe she needed a house. I don't need a house. I'm an uptown girl living in an uptown world. I like my penthouse over Manhattan. I don't need no house. Okay? Just because he bought her a car so she can get her kids back and forth to school and take care of her shopping does not mean he got to buy me one too. So that's not equality in money, because guess what? I got my own Lexus. I don't want nobody's Chevy. I ain't downsizing from a Lexus to a Chevy. Y'all understand? So I had to make that correction. When Allah speaks about being just and fair, he's talking about time. In regards to taking care of the women, you provide for them according to their financial needs, because we're different. Some of us work, some of us don't. Some of us are rich, some of us are poor. Some of us are middle class, some of us have no class. So you take care of them according to their needs. And also, in regards to emotional support and companionship, you have to give the emotional support and companionship to all your wives. But don't get it twisted. Nowhere does Islam say that the women have to be friends with each other. Nowhere does Allah say that I have to be a companion with your other wives. In fact, that goes against the nature of a woman. See what happens when man introduces his own laws. His laws bring about hurt. Allah didn't say nothing about being no friends with your husband's other wives. Were the Prophet Muhammad's wives friends? No. They did not get along. You can read the numerous hadiths about how they couldn't stand each other. They couldn't get along. They argued. They fought. It wasn't until after the Prophet Muhammad's death that they all became friends. And it makes sense because the man involved was no longer there, but they could sit down and share his beautiful memories together. So to believe that because you decide to take on 2, 3, or 4, your wives should become friends and they have to interact with each other, that is against the nature of how Allah created women. And Islam does not require this, nor did the Prophet Muhammad. Show me one hadith where Aisha was holding hands and singing, Allah loves us. Yes, I know, cause the Bible told us so, with any of her co-wives. That don't happen. That's LDS. That's Mormons. That's not Muslims. Don't get it twisted. Again, his other wives ain't none of your business. I don't have to go around them. I don't have to interact with them or anything else, and he can't make you. He should have known that before he decided to take it on. If he can't handle it, get out the kitchen. Okay? So the equal justice is in regards to the time spent. He can't favor one wife over the other instead of coming home. This is my night. Instead of coming home to me, you over somebody else's house. He can't do that. He has to provide and maintain all his wives according to what their needs are. That doesn't mean equality, meaning you buy me a car, you got to buy her a car. You buy me a house, that ain't Islam. That's LDS. Also, another tool is seeking knowledge. And this is something that we always emphasize in everything. You have to educate yourself about the principles of polygamy, how the Prophet Muhammad practiced it, how his wives handled it, and also speak to the people of knowledge, the scholars who specialize in marriage, so they can tell you what your roles are and rights are. And also you can learn from the people around you, the pros and cons of polygamy. And you can also get insight from the people around you that are Muslim, not TV. You should never watch LTC and compare Islam to the Kafirs. That's not us. You talk to the Muslims who have lived that lifestyle. And be careful talking to them too. Because remember, in Islam, we don't talk about what goes on in our house with other people. Let me get this straight too. If the woman is a God-fearing woman, she ain't going to tell you what goes on behind closed doors with her and her husband anyway. So you ain't going to get much from them. Your best way is to learn from the hadiths, learn from the Prophet Muhammad. There's numerous hadiths about the Prophet and his wives, their jealousy and everything else. And you ask the people of knowledge, tell me how the Prophet Muhammad handled the jealousy of his wives. Tell me how the Prophet's wives got along with each other. Did they hold family meetings? No. Were they best friends? No. That's the best way. Knowledge is based on 2 sources, the Quran and the Hadith. That's it. So I tell you, seek knowledge from the Quran and the Hadith from the people of knowledge. Okay? And again, for the man that's thinking about polygamy, he has to understand that each family is unique. Each wife is unique. And what works for one wife or with one wife may not work with or for another. So the man that's doing polygamy, he has to be qualified to do it, because he's going to have to know the needs and the desires and the circumstances of each family unit. Because again, we're not one family. He doesn't have one family. You're not going to find any hadith on planet Earth where the prophet or any of the companions said, we all one family. No. You will find numerous hadiths where a man would say, I got 4 families. I got 3 families to take care of. I got 2 families to take care of. You never will find a hadith where the prophet or any of the male companions said, I got 1 family, if they were doing polygamy. So again, each family is different, dynamic in and of itself. And if you can't assess the needs of each family and be able to handle the desires of each wife, then it's something that you need to think about not doing, perhaps. It takes a wise man, a very wise man, to engage into polygamy, guys. And like I said, it's not that many wise men around nowadays. Okay? And again, a man also needs his own time and space. And this is a question that one of the new converts asked me the other day. He said, Sister Layla, if a man got 2, 3, 4 wives, when he going to have time for himself? Well, you took it on. You took it on. You want time for yourself? You shouldn't have married 2, 3, or 4. Because you got to give each wife her right. You have to divide them days up. And however you got them divided, you can't say that you're taking a break. There's no such thing as, well, I'm going to take a break like the Mormons do. I heard that the Mormons take a break. The man will go in the garage. You can't do that. You know, your days are yours, but your nights are your wives. What does that mean? That's an old Arabic saying. An old Arabic saying is the man's days belong to him, but his night belongs to his wives. In the daytime, you can do whatever you want to do. But after Isha, it's time to get home to your wife. The Prophet Muhammad did what he had to do during the daytime. After Isha prayer, he would go home to whoever's turn it was. So the man's time, and this is what I'm changing here too in the book, because I don't understand what this was ambiguous. You know, if a man needs his own time and space, he shouldn't be getting married to 2, 3, or 4, because your own time and space is the daytime. That's it. Nighttime, you got to go home to that wife, whoever turn it is. So I changed that part of the book too, because I don't know what this was talking about. Okay. You know, your days are yours, but the nights belong to your wives. That's why the prophet said in another beautiful hadith, the perfect prayer of the night is to sleep for 1/3 of the night, remember Allah for another 1/3 of the night, and spend time with your wife the other time. So if you're looking for your own space, you're looking for your own time, you know, polygamy is not for you. Okay? Now, what about scheduling the time, the days? Okay? This can be determined by the man and his wife before. It should be done before you marry another wife. Before you decide to take on a second or third or fourth wife, this should have been established. Okay? You have to meet with those wives. Not together, because we ain't Mormons. We don't have no family meeting and determine what our nights are. We don't do that. And can we switch? Nope. You should go over that with the women before marrying. I made it easy for my co-wives. You want to know how I made it easy? Any man I married, I used to tell him, I only need to see you one weekend out the month. Give me one weekend out the month, and you can determine which weekend it is. So I made it easy for my co-wives. I said, all I need is one weekend. One weekend. You can come in on Thursday and leave on Monday. That's always been my game plan. Come in on Thursday, I'll pick you up, and we'll put you off back to them on Monday. So I made it easy. And I told them you could pick whichever weekend you want. Just one weekend a month. That's all I require. But this should be determined before you even marry the women. I hope this is clear. Total opposite of the Mormons, ain't it? My LDS sisters, this is total opposite of how that crap was, isn't it? Yeah, sister here, Sandra said, yeah, they make schedules. The wives will have monthly meetings and they would make the schedules. Yeah, we don't do that. Not in Islam. Don't happen. And again, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our example. If a man can't take on a responsibility of taking care of 2, 3, or 4 families, then he should just marry one. That's why Allah says it in the Quran when he says in the interpretation of the meaning, if you fear that you will not be able to deal justly with the orphans, then marry women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear that you should not be able to deal justly with them, then just marry one. So that's why I'm saying if a man needs his own time, what was he doing marrying 2, 3, or 4? Because you giving up your time when you take this on. Also, Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning, you will never be able to be equal in your feelings between all the wives, even if you strove to do so. So do not incline completely just towards one and leave the others hanging. So that means you're never gonna, there may be one of the wives that you love, that you really love the most. But even though you may love that one, you can't show it to the others. The others have to feel love too. Like I said, the Prophet Muhammad was a messenger of Allah. Everybody knew that Aisha was his heart. But like Salama said, he never showed that with us. Whosever's night it was, he treated every wife with love, with dignity and respect. He made every one of his wives know that they were special and they were loved. So even if a man loves one, the wise man will imitate the prophet and keep you guessing as to who it was. You can't stop seeing me. I haven't seen you in 2 months because you mad at me. You better fly your butt here to see Layla. That's how it works. If you're a person like me, you know, with just one weekend out the month, you can't tell me I ain't coming to see you this weekend. Why? I'm mad at you. You better fly your butt up here one way or another. Now, if the woman wants to renege on it, then yes, it can happen. Like say, for example, the man says, I'm busy. I'm not going to be able, I got to go out of town on your night or whatever, or I can't fly up there to you. And you say, okay, go ahead. You know, it's okay. Then that's okay. And if something happens where he's got to travel, he's supposed to make that night up to you. Like the prophet did when he would have to go fight or travel. Whoever's night it was that he couldn't do, Aisha said he would do it when he got back. So again, this is not the TLC channel. Allah got rules and guidelines for us. And again, the Prophet Muhammad is our example in polygamy, just like he's our example in how to pray, how to eat, how to fast, how to fight, how to love. He's our example. And for the brothers and sisters that do take on this type of lifestyle, they need to make a lot of supplication and ask Allah for a lot of patience and help. Even our prophet did. He used to say, "Oh Allah, this is my division concerning that which I possess. So do not blame me concerning that which you possess, and I do not." That's the dua that the prophet used to make, asking Allah, to give him the ability to be just and fair with all them beautiful women he had. Okay? So that's what I wanted to go over this weekend. This part, chapter 20, whatever chapter this was, in the beginning of the next. Again, polygamy is not for everyone. For the polygamy is not for everyone. That's why Allah did not make it an obligation upon any of us. Nowhere does Allah say you have to do polygamy. If you don't want to practice it, say no. If your husband tells you he wants to take on another wife and you feel that it would be harmful to you, you can always ask for a kula. And Allah is not going to hold you bad view for that. This is something that's voluntary. It's not an obligation. Okay? So I'm going to stop right here.